I'm so happy that we have this ability now, that we have guests from not only from MSI. And on this community sharing, we can have people, so today Piotr, Trojanowski, who bring their experiences, their knowledge, their ideas that they gathered somewhere else. And they can share them with us, because if you can see it, you can become it. If you have some information you get it into your toolbox, you can try it with your team in your field. So without further ado, Piotr, I'm giving you back the virtual stage, and we are very happy to have you.
Thanks, Veronica. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Happy New Year, 2024. I wish you have a wonderful and abundant year ahead of you, filled with joy, hopefully, a bit of success, but first of all, with fulfillment. And so don't forget to reflect on your personal goals and your personal trajectory. And let me now share the screen. So I've prepared some slides for today. Let me begin with my promise for today. So in 45 minutes, you learn how to create extraordinary organizations and what the leadership has to do with this, and how you as employees can contribute to creating extraordinary organizations. And the probably most important part, after setting the context, is sharing a couple of tools really with you that I found useful in my career when working with organizations and with leaders to help them be better leaders. I'm sure you know some of the tools, but I'm also pretty sure you don't know some of them. So let's see how it goes. My name is Piotr Trojanowski. I spent my whole career in technological companies, first as a software engineer from 12 years, and then as manager and as an advisor on work effectiveness. And my style is really, I like to take the holistic and systemic approach when working with organizations, build a broad perspective before acting. And probably today you're going to see what that means. Okay. So we start pretty sharp because there's quite a lot of talking from my side to start with. I hope you find it useful. So let me start by warming you up a bit into the context of extraordinary organizations. As you can imagine, since the dawn of human collaboration, people they have explored what it takes to create environments in which work gets done effectively, right? and through which people were able to achieve their goals, right? And with time, as we were able to secure our basic needs, the how and why we work together and have been evolving. And noticed how it shifted from organizational setups which allowed the fulfillment of the hygiene levels of our needs, and now we keep shifting towards the fulfillment of our higher needs. So these days we probably mostly aspire to the idea that getting things done in organizations is just an excuse to seek fulfillment of our higher needs, and also sense of belonging, and also like personal growth, and also impact on the wider community, even on society, and perhaps for some even influencing the whole world itself is of value. I'm not going to go into the detail of this slide. I hope some of you know this model of evolution of organizations. If not, I strongly recommend, because it brings a lot of very friendly and humanistic ideas to why and how we work together. This is of course the Lalo model of reinventing organizations. So historically, like, one aspect was always present in any form of organizations, and it still is. It hasn't changed, and people simply organize around leaders, right? Whatever types of leader they are, people still organize around leaders, and so on daily basis, leaders, they have like lots of duties. But first of all, they point direction, and they explain the purpose, why we are here in the first place, where we want to be in a year's time, or 5 years time, or 10 years time. They also shape the path for the employees and for people to make it easier and make it possible for the whole tribe to develop in this direction, right? And there are two ways to becoming a leader. There's at least two ways. So the leaders can be formally appointed. As you know, each organization has its structure and hierarchy, etc. And such formal leaders are appointed by organizations to play managerial roles, or on the other hand, leaders can also rise situationally, right? So, like, voluntarily stepping into the role of the leader by taking a lead in a particular situation, right? And actually, both of the ways are very important, and both of the ways need to be present in an organization. And also, there are two videos here. Again, I strongly recommend. When it comes to informal leadership, so the left-hand side video presents what it takes to become informal leader, and actually takes the guts to stand out from the crowd, and in the first round to get ridiculed, right? And of course, the dynamics of the two types of the leadership, they vary significantly, right? Because one is formal, the other is informal, but still they're equally important for organizations. And it is worth noticing that leaders, depending on their approach, they kind of have power to create both followers or more leaders, right? And probably the right-hand side video, as David Marquette defines it, leadership is embedding the capacity for greatness in the people and practices of an organization, and it's decoupling it from the personality of the leader herself or himself. So, in my opinion, the value of leadership is exactly in the capability not to create followers, but also, of course, it's important, but also most importantly is in the capability of creating more leaders, right? And of course, we are not talking here about this senior management, top tier leadership, but we are talking about daily leadership and team leadership, and even within team leadership, which is usually peer leadership, which is very much situational. Right, and the question is, so we started with extraordinary organizations, but I switched quickly to leadership. So the question is, why am I talking about leaders, right? And as you might have guessed, there's a relation between leadership and culture, organizational culture, and the relation is that leaders actually create culture, right? So this is the key to have in mind, and to when you are a leader, where you want, and when you care about your organization, is that actually what you do as a leader gets reflected in people's behaviors, and in the way how they act on a daily basis. So whatever they do, and especially the style that leaders use, will be reflected in the kind of unwritten DNA of a company, right? As a pattern of what tens or hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people, will consciously and also subconsciously mimic in their behaviors on a daily basis, right? And also what principles they stick to, and in what values they convey, right? And because of this relation, and this is clearly a causal correlation between leadership and culture, I invite you today to explore the area of leadership a bit, and of course the tools for working with leaders as a consequence. So the natural questions, that one may ask himself: so how can leaders lead effectively, right? Because there are people, and you need to admit it, that it must be a tough task to be a leader, to lead other people, given all the complexity of human relations, and all the pressure of organizations, all the expectations from the organizations and from the people that they want you to fulfill, right? And also, I'm sure you know this feeling when people and colleagues like hold their breaths and just wait to hear what's your message, right? What you're going to say, for them to allow them to act based on the direction you define, and and towards the goal you define. So, and I'm sure today there are people who know this experience. If there is anyone on the call who would like to share maybe an example of how it feels, how it felt, maybe a specific situation from MSI or other places, just feel free to interrupt me, and there's clearly a space for you to also participate into this conversation. So clearly, with all this pressure and expectations, it's difficult for leaders to decide where to put their hands in. What topics are important? Which areas I should focus on? And the natural question is how to help these people shape their agenda, right? And I don't mean like typical task prioritization, because there's plenty of techniques to just prioritize tasks, like getting things done, or important versus like firefighting. I'm sure you know these tools, but I'm going to show you a bit of like system thinking of leadership in the tools I'll present today. But first, let's look at like a kind of persona of a leader, because leaders to be a leader, it requires like two things, right? One is the internal side of each individual And there is no surprise leaders need to have like some kind of superpowers, right? So, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So they're usually very passionate with people with vision. They have a lot of courage, and they have high decisiveness. And also, of course, they need to be super effective when it comes to communication with groups of people. But in the first place, of course, they need to build trust, right? So these internal traits, they all allow for the leader to bring trust in, and it is actually trust who enables them to be treated as a leader. And this part on the left-hand side, it's pretty much individual. We don't have much access to this level, but there is also, like, in parallel, external area in which we have a super flexible access to the leaders, and we can shape their toolkit they use, right? And the toolkit, what I mean by the toolkit, of course, we can definitely help them to grasp the wide perspective. We can help them, to grasp this look from the crow's nest, to see the whole landscape. We can also give them a nice compass. We can provide them with a nice map of the situation. We can also provide them with a mirror, right? Because this is also something I learned they need very much in such difficult positions. So today, again, the tools I'll be presenting, they're all about helping leaders to gain the awareness of situational awareness of where we are as a company, or as a team, as a group of people, where we want to be, and make decisions and prioritizations based on high awareness of the situation. And of course, the first tool, this is, as you might expect, this is design thinking. And for me, design thinking is a mother of all perspective expanding tools. It's like a base for enhancing awareness landscapes, right? It really creates landscapes that are wider than the usual landscape of people who are very much into actioning, right? So the design thinking helps you step back, and all the tools that I'll share are based on the idea to hold on your actions, suspend your actions for a while, take a step back, look at the situation from a wider perspective, see what's important, and then start acting, right? So design thinking is, of course, has a double diamond structure. It allows to first explore the problem space and then switches to the solution space. In the problem space, it's got two phases, like discovery and define, which is based on first diverging into the wider space in the first step, and then with the wider view lets you converge into some conclusions, right? And the same happens in the solution space. You first expand your horizons to then converge and deliver the solution. So design thinking takes no shortcuts. It allows to avoid most frequent mistake of jumping directly from a problem into a solution. Some people are proud of, look how fast I can fix problems. This is pretty narrowing down type of mentality, which actually creates more problems, in my opinion, than it solves. So it's like similarly, like something, it's like something like reacting to your emotions, right, without allowing a moment of reflection on a meta level on what happens to us, right? So if this is also very similar process, right? This tendency and to act in kind of urgency, right? And this is something we need to all learn. This is not natural for us. We are still pretty much using the reptile brain when it comes to difficult situations, right? Which is like based on automatic reactions. So design thinking, again, tries to insert additional levels between like the situation and the need for action and actually the immediate action. It inserts in the level of kind of building awareness before you decide which is the best way to react in this situation. And of course, one more thing. Of course, you know that this is actually the structure on which the Agile retrospectives are built. Pretty much the same. First, diverging, grasping the wider perspective, and then converging into what really is important in a situation. Second tool, I'm sure you also heard about this, radical candor. This is for me like a leader's mirror, right? And I saw people, and also myself, I guess yourself too. There were situations in which you could shout like a kingdom for a mirror, right? Because sometimes it really takes awareness to understand how people see you in action, right? And thanks to radical candor as a kind of mirror for a leader is the ability to see herself or himself in action, how people see me, what my style is actually causing to the people, what is it causing the effect I'm expecting to see, what message am I conveying, is the communication clear, and are my actions reflecting my intentions, and so on and so on, right? So this is very important to step back, to have a look in the mirror if you are if you're working with a coach or some kind of advisor, or you have a peer colleague that you treat as a kind of your sparring partner for discussions, to give you some feedback, really understand what kind of a leadership you are presenting to the people. And of course, you can easily like identify and name like worldwide known leaders in a big corporations like Google and Apple and Microsoft. So I'll just mention one person who was recognized as a kind of unclassified in the lower right-hand side quadrant as obnoxious aggression, which was Steve Jobs. Obviously, he was famous for his challenging directly, but not necessarily like enough of personal care, right? So he was so controversial in his actions. I can see there's some hands raised. So
yeah. So this is something like this tool a leader can use to, I don't know, anonymously ask people like, where would you put me on this thing, or to find someone who can be your mirror.
So you can have like one-to-ones with your trusted colleague, right? Maybe coach, maybe just your colleague from the team, or somebody from organization who you trust, and she can provide you with some feedback. You can also run polls, right? and this is maybe important because usually in organizations, all the way that people get assessed is really top down, right? So your boss comes to you and says, this is our annual review of your performance, blah blah blah, I score you at this scale. But actually it's really pretty rare still to have this process from the bottom up, right? So when the people assess their leaders, and this is it's even more important than the top down. Like top down is important for HR for various reasons, because there are, performance systems and career development stuff. But actually, I believe that assessing the from the bottom up is probably more important, because the higher you are in the hierarchy, the bigger impact you have on the organization. And if it happens, it doesn't need to be formal, but it's a really healthy habit for a leader to ask their teams how they assess her style or his style, right? And it's pretty simple, as you can see, and you can use it in many situations. And I expect leaders to be open for feedback, and always, right? So so this is again, I think everybody deserves mirror, and I think you kind of experience this many times in your life, even private lives, that it's very difficult. The most difficult way to spot is how to spot yourself in a situation. You can see others, you can see how they act in a situation, but to spot your way of behaving and how people perceive your message, this is the most difficult thing, right? That's why coaching is so popular, and that's why feedback is so important. Let me check time. Okay, not bad. Right, so we covered 2 tools already. Do you have any questions so far?
Excuse me, one question to the bottom of this top-down arrow. What is written there? Because I think it is covered.
Oh, this is just.
Oh yeah. Okay. Something. Okay. Okay. Like swearing. Okay, I get it. Thanks a lot.
Swearing. Righty. Okay, so there are 2 more tools I would like to introduce, and I'll introduce them. These 2 first tools, they are pretty widely known, so I just treat this as kind of reminder for you and recall that they are available and you can use them. But when it comes to these 2 tools that they are still ahead of us, I will provide also examples how to use them, right? Because they may be pretty new to you. Overall, you can use each one of these tools in various situations: one-to-ones, team meetings, retrospectives, some brainstormings. Just match the context, and I'm sure you'll find something for a particular situation. All right, so tool number 3, it's called the Pillars and Levers of Organizational Mastery. It's developed by my colleague Doug Talbot. You may actually know him. He used to work in Poland as well for Ocado company. They are also in Krakow, as far as I know. And he was like a big fan of organizational development, and he tried to find ways to understand how to help leaders make sense of so many tools that are available. And so he created this simple 3x3 matrix to help leaders to facilitate, to make it possible to facilitate discussions with leadership in an easy and clear way. So why I like this tool is because it is, in a simple way, it expands the framing from here and now, from this trap of reactive type of actioning, which is so easy to get fixated upon, into a frame of what actually is important. As Doug says, it's not about agility. It never was about agility. It's about creating great organizations. Right? And second, it's not about practices, but it's about leadership and systems that can create great organization. So as you can see, this tool introduces like two dimensions. One defines pillars of each organizations, and the other defines the levers which we can use to leverage the maturity of organization onto new levels of maturity, of greatness, of extraordinariness. So as you can see, there are three pillars. Of course, on daily basis, we talk in all organizations. There's always talk about being efficient, being effective, and about quality of what we do. And then there's also usually talk about products and customer satisfaction, measuring the product market fit and all those UX techniques that I'm sure you're using. And the third pillar is about organization and culture, right? So these pillars are present in each organizations, and the question is, how can you master and shine in each of these areas? And for this, there are three levers. You can pump up what's happening in each of these pillars, and the levers are, of course, practices, the best practice. This is extremely useful, and I think agility brought a lot of great practices into consideration and into use. There's also systems like organizational systems, like career paths and recognition systems and incentive system and personal development and how we work together in terms of some kind of delivery framework. And there is also leadership as a lever for organizational development. And so this tool I find it useful because it allows leaders to choose where they want to play their game, right? And it takes them from what's happening here and now, and my kind of focus on deep something. It takes them step back and shows them this is actually like a map, right? Another tool from the list, a map, and lets them see the whole landscape altogether. So seeing the whole landscape always leads to like higher consciousness and making decisions, right? And it doesn't mean necessarily that leaders should spend their whole time in this, left-hand side upper corner, right? And just talk about leadership and culture. This is not the way this tool is to be used. But of course, there are situations that requires talking about organizational culture and leadership, and of course there are situations which require interventions in area of practices, in area of efficiency and quality and products and services, right? So this is just a tool that to help to make you aware and make your decision where you want to spend your time consciously, right? And by the way, there is original recording webinar by Doug Talbot on my YouTube channel, if you'd like to see his original version. But let's switch to how to use this tool in action. Right? So there are three ways to use it. So first, of course, And I may skip to another slide. The first, so I've got the post-its prepared, and I'll use them as examples. I hope you can see what's written on the post-its. So the first way to use this tool is to ask oneself where I'm spending my time. Right? So, for instance, if we wanted to do this exercise, for instance, why can't I drag this?
You probably have to get out of the presentation mode.
Maybe exit full screen. Can you see? Can you still see?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I can drag them.
I think if you get out of presenting, like presenting the frame, you will be able to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so for instance, customer obsession, where would we put it? Probably somewhere, well, definitely here, right? Maybe even here. And maybe it actually spans across the whole column, but let's put it here. Customer obsession. So product market fit, right? Similarly, somewhere here. How we get things done here. It's probably leadership and culture. How we make decisions here. Again, maybe there is some systems for decision making, and decisions always result of some kind of organizational systems, right? OKRs. OKRs definitely how our organization tries to achieve their goals, right? So this is a system. Approach to innovation. Approach to innovation is how an organization enables each employee to think not only about today, but also in terms of how will we work in a year's time, and how our customers will benefit from our work. So again, this takes leadership, this takes some systems. This is, again, of course, in the context of products, services, and so on. Where is, for instance, CI/CD practices? This is clearly here, right? This is very much about quality, efficiency, and practices. Where is Scrum, for instance, or Kanban, any other? It's probably practices and efficiency, and of course, products, how we create great products, right? Early integration, again, one of the practices. Career development, probably there is a system in your organization. Feedback on managers, again, this is probably somewhere here, and so on, right? So you just drag the items to the board. For instance, like pick like a few top items from the leader's agenda, put them on the board, and ask the guy, so how do you share your time between these activities? Which one is more important for you? From which action you expect to have bigger impact on organization, right? And how is the proportion of time related to the impact that you are going to achieve, right? And this simply, sometimes it causes like aha moment, like, oh my God, I'm spending too much time in on the practice level, right? While I should really focus on OKRs and how we do OKRs, or career development, whatever, right? This is usually what I saw, especially the first session is like really like awakening, right? And this is like, oh my God, I should be working here, not here, right? And so this is the first way to use it. The second way is, of course, like to compare two activities and to decide which is more important. So you can put You can formalize it. You can put some weights to these activities, but by expected impact, as I said. But it's pretty much it's pretty much done as in Agile estimations, right? Where is the impact? What's the size of this, and how much time do I expect? This is this kind of discussion. The third way to use it is to identify conflicts between actions in organizations, right? So this is like left hand of not doing what the right hand is doing. This is this type of relation, and sometimes there is clear conflicts between two systems or two actions or two things that people try to achieve, right? So for instance, like the personal OKR system and goals is not aligned with high priority projects that come from organization's portfolio. So you agreed with your line manager for some kind of personal OKRs, but then at the next at the quarterly planning, turns out that the scope that you need to commit to is completely separated or partially separated from your personal goals, right? So what does it mean? Like how to solve this conflict? And of course, people feel frustrated in these kind of situations. And it's really, for leadership, it's always about removing frustrations from people, right? How to make their work life as smooth as possible, as development as possible, and also at the same time as valuable to organization as it can be. And many times I saw that this tool helped discover that, for instance, HRs were doing something different than product guys or portfolio management guys, and the two systems were not pretty well aligned, and this was causing like some issues in the production, right, for the teams. So this is the tool. Any questions? Probably, if there are questions, we can address them in the next 45 minutes. Another tool, and I'm sure, just let me know whether you still have appetite for another tool, but there is one more. This is what I call 4 lenses of integral agility landscape. I'm going to cover this in 5 minutes. So for those of you who need to decide whether to stay or not, this will take 5 minutes. So this tool is pretty much similar based in the concept of expanding perspective. This is like building a landscape, building a map for the leader to understand what's going on and what's important. And it's based on integral agility framework by Michael Spayd. And the whole space of of organizational life is divided into 4 quadrants: the inner quadrant and the outer quadrant. Inner quadrant represents what happens internally, and the outer right-hand side represents how it manifests, how our thinking and values and mindset manifest in external actions. Right? So there is areas. The upper corner on the left-hand side is about leadership and mindset. This is this one is about practices and behaviors, organizational culture, and then organizational architecture, which is systems, how we work together, what's the structure, what processes are in place, and so on. And here is about organizational culture, which is how we create value here, right? How we work together, and so on. There is again a video introducing this tool. To give you an example, again, it's as simple as putting post-its on the board. So I had a situation where like a group of coaches from an organization came to me and they actually wanted me to create a workshop about roles and responsibilities, right? And it's quickly and I started asking really, why about roles and responsibilities? Why is it important? In what context we are talking, and what problem you're trying to solve? And actually, we the situation was that they were asked by leadership team to understand a certain smell in organization. They discovered that similar roles of product managers were duplicated between both in technology and in business. And they tried to clarify the roles and responsibilities, the division of roles and responsibilities between IT product managers and business product managers, right? And so we started, so this was like the starting point was, we are, as a company, we are getting more structured and more standardized, so we need to eliminate the conflict in these two roles, right? And how it ended, we identified a lot of situations in which these conflicts were arising. So of course it was iteration planning, it was managing the value streams, delivery trains, and so on. It was also about business IT relation maturity. It was about personal style of leadership, because the company was hiring a lot of external consultants, and there was like a variety of personal styles, and it was of course about portfolio management, the prioritization of initiatives, which in fact all these areas were contributing to the tension, to the friction, not necessarily the definition of roles and responsibilities, but all these aspects of organizational life. So we actually decided to inspect what happens in these particular situations, iteration planning, portfolio management, because it turns out that these processes and these systems were actually a source for the conflict. It was less about roles and responsibilities, because when people can always work together and they could work their way out, but apparently there were organizational systems which were causing a friction. So as a result, there were interventions in how they prepare to iterational planning, how they contract across teams, what is possible to be done in the given quarter, and what needs to be done. Of course, portfolio management was, again, there were improvements in portfolio management, identified like the process of establishing priorities in the first place required intervention, and so on and so on, right? So from this narrow framing, they were looking at the problem. They wanted to solve the problem directly, but when they drew this picture, they said, all right, so maybe we take a step back again, look for the wider perspective, and then decide where our interventions needs to happen, and where do we expect the biggest impact of the interventions. All right, so let me quickly park the speech. So my promise was to give you some ideas on how to create extraordinary organizations, and in my opinion, it leads through leadership and the awareness of the leadership. And I showed you a bunch of tools that are in my practice that were very useful in many situations. Of course, one thing that I wanted to ask from my perspective, that there is no limit to the size of the container. There is no limit to the perspective, to the widening perspective, right? Some time ago, I thought that the biggest container in each organization is the great products, right? Everything can sit in the great products. But actually, I discovered that maybe there is even bigger container and the bigger perspective, which can be, for instance, saying we are not here to build great products, we are here to build better us, and only through better us we can play a better role for society, for the customers, for the products, and for ourselves, right? So I encourage you to, one thing I want you to remember, never forget to expand your perspective before you make a decision. This really helps you out of the narrow framing and brings you richer palette of options for you to use. Be the change you want to see in the world. Think of what's important for you, especially in this new year. I want you to stay in touch, and if you liked it, especially if you liked it, stay in touch. I'm here to help you.